are going to discuss Brics today, and today is September the 14th, 2024. So, good morning. Hi, how are you doing, Low Tide?
I'm,
What would you like to
hi.
start off with?
Well, I just want to say hello. And first of all, we're not. This is for educational purposes, and we don't want anybody to construe our conversation to be legal or economic advice. It's just for our own edification, and we hope we can help some of the people that are members in the community um, expand their knowledge because
Absolutely.
this is a real thing, and it's grown over the years, and a lot of people have a lot of confusion about it. And well, first of all, I would definitely caution people to understand that this is not the way the world is going to change over. Economic powerhouses are not going to come from this right away. Everybody wants to tie this to the decentralization of the dollar and how it's going to fall, and that's not my intent, and that I don't think that's yours, RJ. You're just wanting to share some
Uh,
knowledge.
right, right. Absolutely. And this isn't just a set of countries that are basically getting together for trading between them,
Yeah.
and they are also about to come up with a new financial system as well, which will be digital, um, and it will be. They will also be able to use their own currencies as well.
Yes.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure each one of them will have their own stable coins to go with this digital system, and their stable coin will be, their country's currency, whatever it is. It will equal their country's currency, I would imagine.
Yes. Um, what I've understood is that they intend to form. They are forming a, a bank and a banking system to rival the SWIFT system that's used in Europe to transfer money and cross-border payment systems, and so that they probably will need to eventually settle on a currency like the euro dollar. It used to be that Europe was uh, 10 or 12 nations that had their each of their own currencies, and that they got together with an agreement and formed the European Union, and they formed their own euro dollar, and that dollar is actually stronger today than the US dollar. It has
Yep.
a fairly high trading rate, and that's the idea behind the BRICS, this this Eastern world, I guess you'd say, the Russia, China, India, and it's going to encompass a lot of the other smaller countries like Malaysia and even Vietnam. A lot of confusion and arguing about whether the Arabian countries would join, and they have shared or showed some interest in that. But because of the petrodollar, it's still being dominated by the U.S. Economy. A lot of the other countries are just seeking other avenues to trade their commodities and get paid in what they consider to be verifiable and backed currency. Um, Eventually, this is all going to go to a asset backed currency, which will probably be based in gold. And we've seen a lot of that testing, the market testing with Zimbabwe and South Africa. Some of those countries are very neatly working to see how this can be done in say the forex market. You put together these pairings of currencies, and then they're traded in a basket. So that's a whole nother avenue and street that we don't really need to go all the way down. But we know that the BRICS started in 2009 as just a, a group of world leaders that got together to discuss things that they had in common. And since then, it's grown slowly. They rotate their chairmanship of that committee every year. This past year, it's been in the control of Russia. Russia and Vladimir Putin was the seat or the chairman of the Brics for this year. And so I'm not sure who they expect to take that chairmanship next month, but next month is their next meeting. And it's gone from 4 to 5. And then about 10 years later, it went to 10 nations that wanted to join and were accepted. And then right now, I think there's 45 interested, but 35 are interested in joining. And that leads to what you were talking about in that article. You want to share that article a little bit?
Well, there's not a lot about that article, but what they were discussing in the article was that it was it started out, the article started out with the New Development Bank, which is the BRICS Bank, and it turned 10 years old this year.
Yeah.
And they were discussing, who had joined and who hadn't joined. And anyway, it was like you said, the 4 were in 2009, and then in 2010 South Africa joined, and then in 2024, that just this January, they were, I guess they were invited to join during the summit last fall in 2023, and then they actually became members in January. And one of the things that the article brought out was that Saudi Arabia had been asked to join in 2023 during the summit, and they accepted, but then they never really joined. And because of that, they decided to put off membership and just have people join as partner nations instead of, and with so many countries too wanting to join. I think that had something to do with it. But so they're going to change the way they do things, I think. And this was just a suggestion that they came up with, and whether they're going to go through with that or not, whether they'll have full membership, with these new countries that want to join at this point, at this summit this year. I don't know if they'll have full membership or if they'll just do partner nations. We'll have to see when it comes up.
I think that there might be a few that perhaps formally allowed to join, but it's been
coming. I do know that Malaysia and Turkey both have sent in applications, and they very well might be full members because they've been talking with the BRICS for a while now.
Yeah. Hal Turner has a radio show, and I'm not plugging him. I just took an article from his website, and it was published by this fellow's name is Harold Turner, and he published this article, and it was saying that there's 159 participants currently ready to join this BRICS system, this BRICS payment system, and that further isolates the U.S. dollar. And it just said that after it, I'll just read part of this article if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
After recent rumblings surfaced of how many nations would embrace the impending BRICS payment system, the bloc has confirmed that 159 participants are set to adopt the new payment system. Indeed, the economic allowance is poised to hit the ground running when it finally launches. Now, all eyes are on when that launch will take place, and many are. Side note: many are expecting an announcement next month. Many have surmised that it would announce at the highly anticipated 2024 summit, and moreover, it would be set to go live in what would be a groundbreaking unveiling. If that were to happen, the bloc has already noted that there is a long line of entities ready to embrace it. Earlier this year, the Brics bloc announced the creation of a blockchain-based payment platform that you referred to earlier, and it would redefine the collective's global economic standing. And moreover, it would compete with some of the largest payment systems worldwide. That includes the Western-dominated SWIFT system. Now, the Brics group confirmed that 159 participants will adopt a new payment system. And indeed, Russian officials verified the number in a recent correction, adding according to Yahoo report. Although previous statements rumored 160 countries would be involved, the number was clarified in subsequent reports. The payment system is crucial to the bloc's ongoing de-dollarization efforts, and it will provide participating countries with an avenue to trade in their own local currencies. Therefore, it will greatly enhance how these nations settle trade, ultimately decreasing international necessity for the U.S. greenback. And then it goes on to talk a little bit more about why there would be an exodus from the U.S. dollar, but I won't read that. I just, you got any comments?
Well, I had read that well, maybe not that same one. The one I read was from the Watcher Guru. Um, and
Yeah.
it did say, it mentioned the 160 and then it was adjusted to the 159.
Yeah.
And it would be amazing if that many countries do
Yes.
join. Some of the ones that they mentioned were Malaysia, Thailand, Nigeria, and Turkey were set to join.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to wait and see exactly what
Yeah.
happens. I also they had a meeting recently where 126 nations were represented in the meeting.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's
we'll
definitely,
just have to see.
yeah, and it'll be interesting to watch it. I think it's very advisable to make sure that people understand that um, this is not going to take the power from the dollar instantaneously. It
Oh
the
no.
the
Mm-mm.
dollars fall, or the reset of the way that global trade is done will take many, many, many years, probably decades to come. If there's going to be a completion, but it does show that people are starting to put their heads together, because the United States it's not the market that it used to be. It used to be that the U.S. was the only true market that were the consumers were buying and selling things in rampant numbers. Most
Mm-hmm.
of these East Asian countries would produce things that were because they could do their labor. Their labor was very cheap, and they could produce articles. And we embraced that. We sent Nixon over just for that purpose, to make a deal with China, and that's where China has become the powerhouse that it has, using that economic leverage and trade. And it's gotten to the point where we have a deficit with China now, that we send more dollars to China than they send to us. I mean, they send us huge amounts of products, and most people would find anything that they desire, whether it be one of the big box stores or just online. The online shopping market has become exploding and huge. And so I think a lot of the economic strength that's come from the Brics consortium is the fact that they realize that they have a powerful tool in trade, and it's not just for a one-sided trade anymore. It's a global trade, and when you're recognizing the numbers of people that are becoming upwardly mobile and have access to the internet, they have access to nearly anything that they desire, good and bad. We've seen this economic strength come to the internet, and it's got good sides and bad sides, but it's it's prevalent that people must be self-governed and self-monitoring. We've got to keep it at least a little bit under control and legal, and stop allowing these things to. And I hope that that's the effort that Brics will address. That they'll address this black market situation that goes on with the internet. And so, anyway, that being said, I would say that Vladimir Putin has sent a message from his nation to other nations, and that people have no choice but to pay attention, and ignorance would uh, basically cause their own nations to fall. And I think he's really speaking more to Europe than it is to the United States on that, because of the present circumstances that involve the fight in Ukraine. And Ukraine is a massive breadbasket. Southern Russia and Ukraine are they produce huge amounts of grain, and the free trade of that going into Europe and Africa is a major concern. And it's not just reliant upon the United States to defend those trading routes. And since the Brics nations last year began to talk about openly the Beltway Initiative that would provide transportation services not only by sea but by rail and um, trucking across highways from all the way from northern Russia and a leg out of China and coming out of India. You can see this little three-way fork or something that's being produced, and it's going to culminate in the Middle East as a highway and road that can transport goods and services um, all the way to the southern tip of South Africa. And then they will have seaports that will go from Western Africa to Eastern South America. So it'll be like a seaway system that will be set up uh, according to what they're talking out of Brazil, but to supply the many new members or new addressees uh, in South America. And you know as well as anybody else that they probably serve the Central American nations as well. So it's a huge deal, and we're looking for news to come out next month. And I think we look for huge developments in as a whole, because um, like I say, this is something that's going to transpire over the course of decades, if not, it's not just a few years, but we're seeing the development, the creation of this right now, and so if they begin, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but it's been spoken of quite a bit openly, that they might perhaps begin to form a military alliance, and if that is so, they would still have to settle a lot of differences that remain between China and India. But those economic powers, if they could settle their differences and put together a military consortium like NATO, it would have some pushback effect, not just one country like Russia fighting against the NATO nations, the 10 or 12 NATO nations. If they could join a consortium and come to an agreement militarily to aid each other, it's going to be a huge change. And so I
Yeah.
think that's something to watch, even though most of these nations are not militarily strong. Together they are, and with China being the backbone of that now, um, I think China is just looking for friends in the neighborhood, and so they don't stand alone, and they want to do things that they want changes in their area of influence. And we got to realize that this is all the BRICS consortium is all about influence and economic power to fight back or push back against the G7 and the Western nations, as it's seen, the Western economic nations, as they move toward an asset-backed currency. So I better shut up and let you talk, because I think you got things to say.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to bring up was the fact that I don't think Brics started out wanting to um, cause the dollar to
No,
sink,
no.
but what happened is our country placed so many sanctions on both China and Russia that they had no choice but to start looking elsewhere to
Yeah,
find a way to still trade and be able to make payments.
it's true. It's true.
It's like they didn't really. I don't really think they started out
Yeah, no.
wanting to cause the dollar to fall,
Well,
but the
we
U.S. kind of forced it.
yeah, they did. They did. And I think what more than anything, the light went on when the United States, uh, in the visible attitude toward countries that would push back against the petrodollar. And I can only point out the fact that a couple of these nations, they were, their governments were eliminated, their leaders were eliminated, even if they were dictators. They
Yep.
were they were living in peace, basically, with the West. And Muammar Gaddafi was one of those. Began
Yep.
to push back and push against that. He wanted to change the petrodollar from U.S. to European. He wanted the euro dollar to be the basis of his oil trades. And then um, the Saddam Hussein received the same kind of treatment, and he too was pushing for a change in the petrodollar, and he wanted to start trading his oil for a different, form of currency, because he had no faith in the U.S. dollar anymore. That they were using these sanctions, using the dollar, and enabled the United States to have leverage over these other countries, and they were really very tired of being told what they were going to have to do and how to eat the cabbage. And I mean, that's kind of a crude way to put it, but we know that there's evidence of those the Secretary of State in the United States having great power to have leverage over these nations if they didn't conform to what the will of the United States was. And the United States had the big gun, the big stick to back it up. And that I think that's where it woke up Russia and China to know that the United States and the West had the power and the ability to cut off their economic flow of trade, whether it's been with natural resources like oil or natural resources like grain. Um, you can't feed your population if you can't come to an agreement how to pay for a shipload of wheat. And some of these countries are bread baskets, and their products are very necessary, and so that um, nobody had very much faith in the dollar anymore, and they did have faith in oil, and they wanted to find a way to be able to trade the oil for food, and therefore be paid in something that was they had faith and credit in. It wasn't just the United States forced the hand of many of these other countries, and the BRICS was already talking about ways to help work together. And I think you're absolutely right. They forced their hand, and
Yep.
I don't think I don't know whether it's going to turn out good or bad, but I do know it's going to have an impact. Uh, how big, I just don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's a shame that it's come to this, but the US has always been the dominant, and Kissinger is the one that set all that up back during the
Yeah,
Nixon
yeah,
administration.
yep.
I do remember that. I was around actually.
I
I
was
do
too.
remember that.
I was too. I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't. I wasn't. I was. I wasn't as. I wasn't as aware as some of my other friends were, because at that time when that happened, I was. I don't know, in my early teens, and we were living overseas when that happened. Uh, there was My father was part of the Navy support activity that was in the Mediterranean, and so he would just take off and be gone for a couple of weeks or even a month, and he would come back with news, and basically his news was that everything was quiet and good. We didn't have to worry, but there was times, during the 70s that a lot of bad things happened in Israel or to Israel, and that became the focal point of the Mediterranean Sixth Fleet, that they had to protect Israel because the people were taking citizens hostage and holding them for trading them, just like they are today, trying to hold hostages to trade for prisoners in exchange, and perhaps even some money. So we remember that this whole deal with Kissinger was just an effort, basically an effort to put a steady hand on the tiller of world peace, because at that time the bloc of Arab nations was still pretty uh, unorganized, and they did later organize into OPEC, and those nations began to realize they had power if they worked together, and so I think that. It was an agreement between Kissinger and Saudi Arabia that if they would begin to use our dollar, U.S. dollar, for their payments, and cross-border payments, and use the economic trading system, um, that they would provide protection for Saudi Arabia. And that began to form this coalition of the Brics, the petrodollar. So we would provide a lot of different countries with protection, and if they would stay peaceful and be willing to conduct their activities. And so it wasn't until what Trump came into office that they began to have a large group of the Arab nations trying to seek a peaceful avenue to live in coexistence. It began with Egypt, and that didn't end well for the Egyptian president. He was assassinated as well, but that was from within. And a lot of these Arab nations are are not very good friends, but they always believe that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So um, they would work together, and I do believe that that's what you're going to see with this Brics group as it grows, and I think that'll be something to watch.
Well, I think that yes, the BRICS group is something to watch, and there is a summit coming up. I don't have the exact dates, but
The
it's this
13th and the
fall.
Yeah, I think it starts the 13th of October and ends the 15th, but I think they're going to stretch it into the 17th.
Okay. Yeah.
That
I didn't
that's
know if
just
it
what
was
I
even
read.
October or November. I had the
Yeah,
dates, but I don't have them
yeah.
in front of me right now.
Well, I don't either. I don't either, and I don't want to misquote myself, but that's
Yeah.
what I believe it is.
Okay. Well,
I
I'm glad
I did
you
read it.
had that in your head.
Yeah, I did read it, and it's I do believe October the 13th is the beginning, and I don't know if they're going to get down to business right away, but I do believe they have lots of plans, and you know how that works. They'll get together a week or two ahead of time to try to come to some kind of agreement and things that they can announce and make progress on. It's no different than the G7 or the G20. This is just
Yeah.
a different group, and a lot of it was done just as a pushback because originally it wasn't. that 10 years ago, I think 12 years ago, Russia was part of the G7. It wasn't, it became the G9, I think, and for a little while. And they didn't get along with Russia because Russia asked the president of the United States to do certain things, and the president of the United States was advised that if he begins to make nice with Russia, that he would lose uh, the ability to sanction a lot of these other countries. He would lose his leverage, and so they pretty much disowned Vladimir. And I think they really prosper on this idea that we have an enemy, that we need an enemy to be able to keep our system going. And
That's it. They need it. Not that they
yeah,
are an enemy. They
yeah,
need an enemy.
right, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the United States has Eisenhower warned against this.
I
Eisenhower, when
know.
he left, he warned against the military-industrial complex, and was amazing because he came out of that. He understood the use of power to control, defeat enemies, and sometimes it was necessary. But I think it also scared him about how big and powerful these American companies have become, and who I don't know to the we don't know all there is to know. There's a lot to be known, and
Yeah.
probably it's bigger than what we could even dream of or get our heads around. But we do understand that economics makes the world go round, and being able to today, to be able to order something from Vietnam or Taiwan or Malaysia or whatever, and have it shipped to the United States, and then have it delivered by one of the parcel companies, is just an amazing thing. Um,
Yeah.
and it's done every day now, thousands or millions of times a day. So it's just an amazing thing that the world has come to with its economic trading platforms.
Absolutely. And all the different shipping. I know we've got a port right here where I live, um, near Norfolk,
Yeah,
and my sister lives real close to it. I every time I go see her, I see all of these shipping containers
yeah,
everywhere. Yeah, they're just stacked and stacked and stacked all
yeah.
around.
I imagine that a lot of those ships that are leaving are carrying empty containers, because a lot of the stuff is unloaded in the United States, and then there's nothing to put back in it to ship
I
to them.
agree.
And
Yep, I
that's the
agree.
sad part. That's a sad part of an American economy, that we don't have reciprocal force to hold our own anymore. And in the
Yeah,
Midwest, here where I live, those shipping containers are being sold empty for storage boxes and stuff for people to build barns out of and stuff. Um, they're just left and right.
some
There was a
people build
time,
houses out of them.
yeah,
Actually.
yeah, yeah, they do, and I mean I don't think I'd want one, but to each his own, you know.
Yep, they're pretty small. That would be one of the tiny houses for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people um, find a place that they can put their little tiny home, and they want to have a piece of their own property, even if they're just renting the ground. That gives them the ability to um, to have something that's fairly fireproof and safe and tornado proof. And I mean, it's amazing what people have done. But this economics thing is with Brics is way, way bigger than just an agreement to trade back and forth between like minds. These nations, they don't just come together and act nicely to each other, so that they can get along and find ways to prosper their currencies and trade. If Vietnam wants to buy wheat, they probably go to Ukraine or Russia or somebody like that. if they can't get it from the United States. And that's been the sad part of this whole deal. It used to be the United States was the economic powerhouse in agricultural commodities, and they are no longer
Absolutely.
that way. Yeah, they're no
Yeah.
longer that way. But I'm amazed at the tractors and combines and agricultural implements that are being provided and um, manufactured in all of these other countries. So there's great demand. There's huge demand, and our economic manufacturers here in the United States are not the only dealer in town. There's a lot of dealers, and they've used old technologies that have been around for a long time, and good, reliable engines and processes to make these agricultural equipment. Bulldozers are included. Earth moving equipment is included. All of this stuff is way beyond just buying grain or trading gold or whatever commodity you want to talk about. They're building power plants. They're building reservoirs for fresh water. They're building railways. They're building so many different avenues. And so the world wants to grow, and it wants to expand its ability to trade. And that's a good thing, I think, in the whole. But it comes at a cost that the United States is got to realize that they've got to make room for everybody. Uh, it's not just the United States and the U.S. alone, or the U.S. and Canada, and perhaps Mexico. This little trading bloc amongst ourselves is not going to be the dominant power as time goes on. I don't think.
Well, we'll just have to see. And
Yep.
I think we should probably try to close this
Yeah.
up. And I think that everybody should follow the news hounds, because we are going to be posting all kinds of information on the Brics between now and the summit and after the summit. So just follow the news hounds news. And do you have any closing?
No,
Uh,
I just thank you. If it's, I don't know if Salty is still in the neighborhood or not, but if she wants to come on and tell us um, goodbye, that'd be fine. But I just want to thank
Well,
you for taking the time.
yep,
I am
yep.
on here just soaking up all the good information that y'all have. I'm very excited with the Newshound News and taking that over to YouTube and all over where we can expand our territory and help more people understand. It's calls like this that break it down in common sense where they can follow. And then we've got documents to back it up too. So we
Yes.
want to help everybody understand the complex news system together, and y'all did an outstanding job. So we'll go ahead and close it out until the next call with Low Tide and RJack. I
All
thank you
right.
guys very, very much. Bless you both. Bye
Thank
bye.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Arjax.
You're
Bye bye.
welcome. Thank you